the cost of maize meal has been brought down from about 205 shillings, as you say. Some argue it was 220, down to 100 shillings.
Yes.
President Uhuru Kenyatta, in addressing this situation, listed a number of factors. He said poor rainfall over subsequent seasons.
Yes.
He talked about a locust invasion, the locust invasion,
Yes,
and there's no denying that that happened. He talked about COVID-19 and then went on and mentioned the Russia-Ukraine war as all being contributory factors.
Yes.
But then he also went in and said that he wonders why this happens every election season.
Yes.
So which is it? Is it the factors I listed beforehand, or is it politics?
I think he was saying all those factors have contributed. In the sense that, of course, we have been having a drought for the last, actually, 3 seasons, and the best of the rains, especially the last season. So that reduced the harvest. The harvest was very low, and that contributed to the price increase because demand shot up, and therefore the prices increased, and the drought was in the entire region. Even in Uganda, they are saying they don't have enough. Tanzania, we're trying to source maize from there. The minister told me what they have is enough for themselves. We eventually had to talk to the Zambians to find some maize that could assist the millers to buy. So it is true, drought contributing to the shortage of maize. It is also true that when you're importing maize, there is cost of transport, which has tripled after the COVID crisis. Cost of transport has gone up 3 times across the world. So there is that element. And of course, locusts also contributed. Remember, we spent a lot of money dealing with the locust menace, and a lot of crops was destroyed at that time. So all those factors, and then of course millers and traders taking advantage of the situation to hold maize to get more money, and who knows, probably politics.
Okay.
If maybe they are supporting a certain sign of politics, they would audit to make sure that it is high, so that influence the opinion of Kenyan people. The president was wondering loudly, like you and me, why? Why does it happen every election year? And with precision. The prices go extremely high to once when the date of the election is approaching. The closer it comes, the more the prices go up. Is it coincidental? It's a question he was posing.
Yes, but who should we then go to for answers? Because this is the most powerful man in the country. He has intelligence reports. Why wonder with no answers?
Maybe he was relying on the intelligence report to. He was prodding you, the Kenyan people, to go deeper into this issue, not to assume that it is just the normal, things that is contributing. Look deeper and see whether there are politicians who would want to exploit a situation like that. Especially when you hear some of them harping on it so much during the campaign. You wonder, are they involved in influencing? Remember the fuel problem. There was some involvement. Those who are exporting fuel outside the country, fuel meant for Kenya, and then blaming government. So we are saying all those factors contributed, but there could also be a political agenda with it.
Okay.
Especially when you hear people really harping. Every meeting you are just talking about unga going up. Then when it is undressed, you say you are addressing it because of politics. So it's like government can't win. I mean, somebody is saying take action, the public is expecting action. You take action when you have the resources to do so, because government was waiting for the year to close, a new year to start, to be able to budget for the new money, the money for that year to subsidize the price. Now, if that is happening when the elections is coming near, would you stop subsidizing because you don't want to be accused of having a political motive? Or you wouldn't, because government must function and must provide services to its citizens whatever time, election year or no election year.
Okay. You say the reason, now, why now? Because you've preempted my next question. You're saying it's a new financial year, the money has been found. I would imagine there are contingency funds for such a situation.
There is no contingency fund, so to speak. When you have a challenge, usually in government, what we do is we raise the issue with the Treasury, and the Treasury is able to reduce either spending on some matter that is not an emergency, to raise money to bring it to this contingency. So contingency plans are there, but there is no money set aside as contingency money.
Okay.
So you are able to review our budget to provide the resources to deal with that contingency, with an emergency like this one.
So why was the budget not reviewed earlier? Is it coincidental that we are a couple of days to the election?
I'm sure you know that we have also been struggling with raising enough money. It is public knowledge. So it will not be fair to say government just sat down there and waited for the voting when it comes near to provide the money. Treasury has been grappling with a situation where you have to raise money to meet the cost of running government and providing services, paying debts. Remember, the Kenya shilling has also lost a lot of its value, which has also increased the debt repayment. So when you have all those needs that you have to deal with, and then something that was not planned for comes in, like the cost of maize going up, you got to look for the money.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just want to assure the public there was no, it's not like we were sitting there waiting. Remember, government started subsidizing fuel a long time ago, and it has been consistently doing it. There was no campaign then, there was no election then. And fuel is a key factor in the cost of living, because you use fuel for everything. So at that time, the decision was that if you subsidize fuel, you're reducing, you are maintaining cost of transport, cost of powering industries, cost of everything else, because fuel has an impact in every sector. So government saw that as a priority and did that at that time. There was no politics, there was no election. Now this other one comes up, government again had to raise money to take care of it. But it is also important to point out that it's not the business of government to try and help anyone to win an election, especially those who are complaining. Why are they speaking with a lot of entitlement? Like government should just not solve a problem so that they win an election.
Okay, you've talked about debt repayment.
Yes.
We saw the Ministry of Agriculture first release a statement on Monday. Then we saw President Uhuru Kenyatta meet with the millers at State House.
Yes.
And then issue a statement. I believe that was on Wednesday.
Yes.
Then we saw the price of unga now come down.
Yes.
Yesterday, was it yesterday that now we started seeing the 100 shilling price tag?
Yes.
Why was it necessary for President Uhuru Kenyatta to meet the millers? Is it indicative perhaps of a lack of faith in the government's ability to repay its debts?
What do you mean?
There's a debt that was pending, the 500 million shillings you talked about, and you said that was occasioned by the EAC.
Yes, the EAC said they want to investigate, and they were clearing those debts, and we were paying them as they clear them, because it's also an obligation on our part to ensure that what we pay is what is due. We shouldn't pay debts that are not real, because we will be misusing the public money. So EAC was doing its job, but it probably took a bit long in doing its job.
So why
that's how government works. I mean, you spend money, somebody complains that there could have been corruption in it. Maybe there was no maize supplied, there was no unga supplied, somebody's making money fraudulently. It is the business of EAC to investigate and clear, and that's what they did. So as they were clearing those debts, we settled them. This was the last one to be cleared.
Okay. So what was the purpose of President Uhuru Kenyatta meeting the millers on Wednesday?
The purpose? To announce the program of subsidy. It's a very important program. for the country.
So there was no resistance on the part of the millers?
Resistance? The millers basically were asking for a commitment to that the debt will be settled, which we gave. If you look at the contracts we have signed with them, there's that commitment that we will settle the debt. What we did in State House was just a ceremony to announce the program. We wanted it to have proper impact in terms of the public knowing, since it was a big issue among the citizenry.
Okay.
So it was not, they were not being taken to State House to be persuaded or be, you know. No, it was after we had concluded everything that we had to go to State House. And the announcement, by the way, we never made any announcement. You are aware. It's the media that did its own investigation, got the information. I didn't make any announcement because we had not concluded the discussions. Media probably reached out to some of the millers who had the information, and they gave the information. So no statement came out from
the Ministry of Agriculture. Okay. The statement President Uhuru Kenyatta delivered said it was unexpected, the poor rainfall, the poor performance of the rainfall. But how unexpected, really? Because you just said a drought, it's a cycle, right, of drought. So I would imagine the Jubilee administration has been in office for 10 years.
Yes.
You said this happened, he said this happened in 2013, this happened in 2017, in 2022 this is happening. What happened, were there any measures that were taken in the intervening period to keep us from winding up in the same place?
Well, I would say there could have been a lapse in terms of planning for this kind of a situation, especially given that these droughts are cyclical. But you know, we also rely a lot on, we don't grow enough maize anyway, even in normal circumstances. As a country, we import maize from the region. Now it happened that the drought was covering the entire region. So even what we could have managed in terms of imports, we couldn't. And then of course the challenges of COVID and all that. Because sometimes you may not have the maize here and you have it around. If the cost of freight is not that high, you would still have. The price may go slightly high, but may not go to the level it went. Nobody really anticipated that it would shoot this that high. So I would admit that there was lapse on the side of government. And
the reason I asked that is because there's the saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, now this is fool me 3 times, shame on me. I'm a layman, so please give me some leeway.
Yes.
But somebody may ask, how is it that Zambia has a sufficient supply of maize, enough so that they're able to export, and Kenya does not?
Because Zambia got very good rains this season. So that's why they had good harvest. Tanzania didn't have very good rain. Usually they have a lot of land. They also grow a lot of maize. This time they didn't. Uganda grows maize. They don't consume maize that much. So even though they don't grow as much maize as we do, but they grow maize and sell to us. In Kenya, we rely heavily on maize. Uganda's staple food is matoke. But they grow maize. And they have very good rain. And this time they didn't. So they didn't have sufficient to be able to supply to us. I'm not trying to say that we can't grow enough maize. We can. And I think in the future, the future government that is coming should now plan better in terms of utilizing the land we have for growing of strategic crops. And in fact, if you look at our plan in the ministry, we have a plan that is, we are calling it commercialization of agriculture, where we want to target strategic crops like maize, soya, cotton, that are very useful, very important in feeding the people and feeding our livestock. And we want to release government land, lease to commercial people who can grow large-scale farming and be able to produce those crops for us. Now, the difference between us and Zambia is that here in Kenya, majority of farmers are small-scale farmers. In Zambia, there are many large-scale farmers with big tracts of land that do the farming. If you look at the size of Zambia and the population, you see there is a lot of land. Now, I'm not saying we have government land that is unutilized, which we want to deploy in terms of growing those strategic crops for us.
Okay.
We have also been supporting the small-scale farmers also for their own production, supporting capacity building, credit, good seeds, again to ramp up production so that we are food secure. Okay. So those plans are there actually. If you look at our agriculture transformation and growth strategy, which we have as all the pillars that we require to change ourselves into a food secure country.
Okay.
What we need moving forward is more investment into it, put more money into it. The trouble with the way we plan, and not just government, because budgeting is not just government, there is also parliament. We talk about agriculture a lot, but we don't allocate requisite resources to invest in that agriculture, to transform it. So those are the lessons we are learning, that we need to put more money in our agricultural sector to transform it, to feed ourselves, and to make money for us.
Okay. Speaking of investments, utilization of land, you also spoke of investing in irrigation and you spoke of dams. There was an experiment, Galana Kulalu.
Yes.
An experiment in how irrigation take up arid land, learn lessons from the Israelis on how to transform arid land into arable land and supply enough maize. What is happening? What is going on there? Is it a failed experiment?
Yeah, Galana Kulal was a good plan that was poorly implemented. And I think there was opaqueness and maybe even corruption in the way it was done. If you look at the cost of the money used there and the results, you can see it doesn't tally. So it's still a good plan, and actually like close to 400 acres was done, and it was meant to be a pilot. It was successful in terms of producing the maize, but the cost of production was extremely high. Why? Because the infrastructure that was required to make it not that expensive was not put in place. For instance, we were using diesel pumps to pump water. Now diesel is expensive. We should have made sure we put power to ensure that cost of production are low. So we learned that 40% of the cost of production was actually power. That made the maize expensive. If you look at the area, there was even no infrastructure in terms of a road and a bridge to bring in the inputs. So the cost of also bringing inputs there went high. So government has reviewed the project, and the plan is to provide that infrastructure that is missing so that we bring the cost of production down, then expand the project, and then probably forget about maize so that we grow maize in the area that maize does well. If you look at the experiment again, you see maize was not the best choice as a crop for Galana Kulal. Cotton is doing well there also. Soya can do very well. We need cotton for our textile industry. We need also cotton for animal feed. So if we did cotton and we did soya there, it would be a very successful project. So these are some of the strategic crops I'm telling you in our commercialization program we are envisioning to do starting the coming financial year. And we put plans, we even have resources actually to ramp up production of soya, production of cotton, leasing of arable land that is government owned, that is not utilized, to enable us produce enough food for ourselves and even for export, and even raw materials for our industries.
Okay, and speaking of the best crop for an area, it's something you've talked about before, and you came under fire. It was the time when you were coming under fire for saying the cost of unga would come down by a shilling when the levies on imported maize were announced. You announced the lifting, I mean the suspension of those levies, and you said Kenyans should start thinking of diversifying.
Yes.
What they consume.
Yes.
Your ministry also just a couple of months ago reduced the cost of a bag of fertilizer. What do you say to the farmer who says some of these measures are coming in a little bit too late? Or some of these pronouncements?
Well, as I've said earlier, the disruptions of COVID-19 were not envisioned. It's a challenge everywhere. We didn't think out. You see, even in the US, the inflation rates have gone to 40%. Inflation costs have skyrocketed because of disruptions of COVID and also cartelization of the transport sector. Those shipping companies coming together and becoming almost like a cartel, increasing prices 3 times. Nobody figured that out. So it will not be fair to say we did it, it's coming too late, because it's a problem that nobody figured out. But we came in good time. Farmers were still planting. The fertilizer was also available for top dressing. It is a problem we didn't expect. So when it came, we took action.
Okay.
And it was also important to know that government has been running a subsidy for fertilizer for vulnerable small-scale farmers across the country. That's a different program, and it has been running here. That has actually impacted on close to 1.2 million farmers, supporting different value chains across the country. Maize farmers, potato farmers, especially Western Kenya. We've been running that program. It may not be very well known, but it has been running here in this ministry. This other fertilizer was now for everyone, but selected vulnerable groups have been getting support from government. Okay. With a program supported by the World Bank, our own money, IFAD. We've been running those programs with counties. Okay,
as we wind up, 2 things. One, how long can we expect this relief to last? A lot has been made over the last few days of the IMF restrictions and their position on subsidies.
Well, the relief, as I've said, and the president said, that until the cost of unga comes down, we continue with the relief. And already, as I've said, money has been put aside to last us for more than 2 months. But Treasury is still looking for more money in case we need it, if the cost will not have gone down by then, in case we need to continue with the program. So it is very difficult for me to say exactly it will last up to this date. And that's why even the president couldn't, because the indicator for it to come down, to stop, is the cost of unga going down by more maize coming. And that's why we have allowed millers to import maize at duty-free from wherever. And they actually, in this meeting, they are the ones who told us to extend the duty-free window for another, up to September, because it was ending in August, so that we can enable them to bring in more maize, cheaper maize, so that then the cost of unga can go down. If it goes down, then there will be no need for subsidy.
Okay. Lastly, what of reserves? I would imagine reserves would come in handy at a time like this. Do we not have reserves, or are the reserves the victim of the corruption that we saw plague NCPB? We saw importers being paid in the billions before farmers were paid.
Well, it's the importers. I don't know which importers you.
There was an NCPB scam in which middlemen were paid 1.1 billion for imported maize. That was during your predecessor's tenure, and farmers were not yet paid for their maize. So just basically the question is, what of reserves do we not have reserves?
Well, we shifted because of those problems you are alluding to, where NCPB was being used for corruptive practices, people making money and become a cash cow. Government, and it was a decision of cabinet shifted from physical stocks of keeping maize and cereals in stores to money, where you would utilize the money to do cash transfers. So these programs you have been hearing where vulnerable people are sent money in our slums. Remember there was that program, which is run in another Ministry of Special Programs. It's to support people with money so that they can buy from the closest shop. That way you don't disrupt the private sector businesses also, because whenever you subsidize like we are doing, and you don't subsidize everyone, you bring a distortion in the market and you impact on business, because businesses rely on predictability of prices. So government shifted away from keeping physical stocks to keeping money, and then utilizing that money to transfer the money to vulnerable groups. And government has been doing that for all this period.
And you maintain that was the wisest decision even now?
Well, looking at the circumstances, because the idea was thought that there would be maize available anyway. There is nothing wrong with doing that, by the way, if the stocks are available, if you have maize. Now, when you don't have, even if you have the money, you have a challenge, isn't it? That's why you have to source the maize from elsewhere. So probably what we should have done, which we didn't do, was to keep money in NCPB to buy maize from even outside the country directly, so that you have maize that is cheaper, and then millers can access from there, and even other people can access the maize.
All right. Thank you very much.
But then this problem came and escalated too quickly for us to make that arrangement. And again, we also didn't want to start. It's a political season where you'd be accused of anything. So if government started buying maize, you hear stories about how much money people have made. I'm not surprised people are even saying government increased the price of maize. Somebody saying that in the rallies. And we run a market system that is free, where prices go up depending on demand. So you can't say government increase. A free market, government doesn't control prices, so government can't increase prices. But the government can intervene to bring the prices down if they have gone up, by either supplying more maize in the market or doing what you are doing now with the subsidy.
So this is essentially not an artificial shortage of maize?
It is not artificial. It is not artificial, but it could be if those who do the trade of maize were also not reacting by holding, it will not be as bad as it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So we don't have enough, but the situation is exacerbated by the practices of the people in the industry, holding. I know, and this is not a story, I even know people who in that industry who are buying maize and stocking and saying, I'm not doing anything with this maize, I'm just waiting for prices to go up.
All right.
Many. So it's true, there is holding of maize to take advantage of the situation, but there is also a shortage of maize.
Okay. I appreciate your time. I imagine at this time you're a very busy man.
Thank you very much.
I will see you on the other side of studio.